I think we have most everyone we're expecting, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I will do the usual, read the resolution, and we'll approve for the commission to meet in person. And then I think we should do a round of introductions, and then we can delve into the City Hall redevelopment discussion. So the resolution, like the commission to entertain a motion to approve resolution 2020-137, a resolution declaring that the Sustainability Commission shall meet on August 7th, 2020 and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location because it's necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Do we have somebody who will make the motion?
I'll make a motion.
Great. And a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Oh, and third.
All right. We'll go through the members of the commission, starting with Patrick. Aye, nay, or recuse yourself?
Aye.
Alderman Berger. Alderman Berger is on. Can you hear us, Alderman Berger?
Yes, and I am going to be putting I, but I just want FYI, I'm on vacation, so if I lose you or something, I'll try to get back on, but I'm just coming in. I'm sorry I'm late. Thank you.
Okay.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Mike Cassidy?
Aye.
Mike Leonard?
Aye.
Brenton?
Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
Micah?
Aye.
And myself, Dana, aye. All right, and then the next thing I'll read here is once again an announcement for limited public access. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, this meeting will be a virtual meeting. The public may call 615-550-8434 to listen to the meeting and make comments during any public comment period. The public may also email comments to planningintake@franklintn.gov to be read aloud during the meeting. Emailed comments were accepted until yesterday at 5 p.m. The meeting video will be available for public viewing following the meeting on the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts and the City of Franklin website. All right, I think that gets us through the business, not the business, but the formalities of being able to hold this meeting. So thank you everyone for joining. I think we should do a round of introductions. I'm Dana Coase, chair of the Sustainability Commission and work in the energy efficiency field. I think rather than having people jump in, I'll just go through as I see people on the screen here, which means you're up first, and Andrew. Even though everyone probably knows you.
Yeah, Andrew Orr, Long Range Planning Supervisor for the Planning Department.
Okay, thank you. Brad, I see you next.
Hey, good morning. I'm Brad Wilson. I'm the Project Facilities Manager for the city.
Great. Kelly?
Good morning, everybody. Kelly Dannenfelser, Assistant Director of Planning.
Great. Micah, this is like a guess who's up next game. I'll say Micah and then Joe's on deck.
Michael Wood, I'm the Planning and Environmental Supervisor with Volkert.
And then Joe with Mike Leonard on deck.
Hi, I'm Joe Marlowe with the City of Franklin Engineering Department.
Great. And Mike Leonard with Todd on deck.
Mike Leonard. I work with the City of Nashville in the Department of General Services.
Great. Todd with Mike Cassidy on deck.
I'm Todd Palmer. I am the Vice Chair of the Sustainability Commission, and I work at Middle Tennessee Electric.
Great. Mike Cassidy with Vernon on deck.
Mike Cassidy, I'm in the energy efficiency business and on the demand side as well as on the supply side with distributed generation.
Great. Vernon with Nancy on deck.
Good morning. I'm Vernon Girth. I'm one of 3 assistant city administrators with the City of Franklin. And my responsibilities center around supporting our team responsible for the planning and execution of development, both private and capital projects for the city.
Okay,
Good
great.
morning. Good morning. I'm Nancy Whittemore. I'm a resident of Franklin, but the Director of General Services for Metro Government.
Thanks, Nancy. Brenton is up next with Elaine on deck.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Brenton Montgomery, Franklin resident, and then I work for Nashville Electric Service.
Great. Elaine, and then Alderman Berger is on deck.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Elaine Ellis. I'm an assistant for the planning department. Hope everybody's having a great day.
Great. Thanks, Elaine. Alderman Berger with Patrick on deck.
Hi, Alderman Bev Berger, City of Franklin, represent Ward 1 for the City of Franklin, which is mainly the Cool Springs area from south of Moore's Lane to north of 96 to east of McCatcher.
Great. Thanks for joining us on your vacation, Alderman Berger. Last but not least is Patrick.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Baggett. I'm the Franklin Tomorrow board member, representative, and also Franklin resident. Work at USI Insurance Services.
Thanks, Patrick. I think that covers everyone. Is there anyone I missed, couldn't see? All right. So let's go ahead and move to our, it's really our main and only agenda item, so we'll have plenty of time to discuss today the City Hall redevelopment. And I don't know, Andrew, did you want to kick off the discussion or someone from?
Yeah, I hate to backtrack a little bit, but I think we do need to approve the minutes from.
You're right. Sorry about that. I got so excited to talk about City Hall. So yes, let's approve the July meeting minutes. Do we have any comments or any changes that need to be made, or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve. This is Micah.
Second.
Okay. All right. We will go through our roll call for approval, starting with Patrick. Aye, nay, or recuse yourself.
Aye.
Alderman Berger. Alderman Berger, if you're on mute, you might be on mute. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Aye. Okay. Mike Cassidy.
Aye.
Mike Leonard.
Aye.
Brenton Montgomery.
Aye.
Todd.
Aye.
Nancy. I think that was an aye. And then
That was an aye, but that was not my dog. I don't know.
Okay.
No, that was my
No
dog.
problem.
She was voting yes too. So sorry.
That's all right. To be
I'll vote
expected. Great. Thanks, Micah. And then myself, Dana, aye. All right. Now we're through the formal items that we need to vote on. So, City Hall redevelopment. Andrew, did you want to kick off the conversation, or do you have somebody else who would like to kick it off?
I'll open it up and just kind of provide a preface, and then I'll turn it over. Everybody that's on the call from staff serves on a committee that's kind of been meeting pretty regularly, trying to shepherd this project forward. But the genesis of this project dates back to even before the recession. There were efforts to gain traction, gain momentum to do a redevelopment project for the City Hall. It was built in the 70s. It's a former shopping mall that was converted later on. It served us pretty well over the years, but, specifically in the last 10 or 15, there have just been a lot of kind of a backlog of improvements that need to be made. And as the city has grown, the staff has grown, it's just not a conducive space for what we do and what we're going to be doing going forward. So, and it's also right on the square. It's, if you've noticed, it's the one building on the square that's never featured in any photos. So, there is that aspect of, having a one-story building that, is kind of lacking compared to the others, and so underutilized. So we've been working over the last probably year and a half with a firm to do a spatial needs assessment, and that process wrapped up several months ago. And now we've kind of entered the next phase of hiring a design firm to complete a design and do some outreach with the hopes of putting forth a final design that could go through the approval process or will go through it. So that's kind of where we're at. We're on the very beginning. We're in the very beginning of that phase. And, the committee did want to engage the commission. Today is going to be more of an overview of kind of the project and the process, and then hopefully a jumping off point. And I believe there are a couple of you who have kind of, specific interest and knowledge that can help, as it pertains to building systems and LEED certification. So I think there is some value in kind of, as we get into the discussion today, and that's all it is. It's a discussion, trying to highlight the value of LEED certification. And, specifically, I think Nancy and Mike may have some good knowledge and experience, given all their experiences at Metro and doing those projects. So with that, I'll turn it over to probably Vernon or Brad, and you guys can go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you, Andrew. You're all too kind in your description of our City Hall. Let's face it, it's an ugly, dysfunctional building. And we live in this very desirable community we call Franklin that has received a lot of awards, and done it in a building that's never was built as a city hall. And, that's a testament to the elected and appointed officials, the volunteers like yourself that serve the community, and ultimately the employees that work with the people that build the community, the people that buy homes, the businesses that make an investment in Franklin. But the building is falling apart, and I believe you all know that, and it's time that we really dig in to build something that we all can be proud of and spans the test of time as Franklin matures as a place of choice for families and businesses. What I want to do this morning with Brad, Kelly, and Joe is just have a discussion, share our expectations at this point in time of the Sustainability Commission, and for you to share your expectations for city staff with your involvement in redeveloping this site. I have three specific points that I want to share with you. Is provide an overview of where we're at and where we're going as far as a process. I want to also share with you the importance and our goal of including the community in the decision making of how this this site is going to be redeveloped and how it's going to be used and serve the citizens. And then I want to talk about the scope of services and the uniqueness that we are approaching the scope of services with at this point in time during a pandemic, and how it shows that we want to be judicious in our decision-making process going forward. And then I'll have perhaps Kelly and Joe and Brad talk about the charrette process, which will really be the initial phase and emphasis for that engagement going forward that gets us to a conceptual master plan. So with that, as Andrew mentioned, goes back a number of years, the city did do a study on the needs analysis, and we had that updated last year. That was completed around the first of the year. So we have an updated space needs analysis that looked at the functionality of the building and the space needs for the various departments and employees that are presently in our building, which number about 200. During the capital projects planning that the city and Board of Mayor and Aldermen do every year and update, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen have identified the City Hall as a priority, and as such has programmed, not funded, but programmed $24.5 million for a new City Hall. And that's, of course, a very, very rough estimate. Also, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen have identified a new parking structure in our downtown somewhere, and have programmed, again, not funded, $8 million for that parking structure. As we go forward with looking at this site of redevelopment, we're going to consider perhaps the parking structure be a part of this redevelopment site. It may or may not, that's yet to be determined. So shortly after the first of the year, we have a city team of various employees that have been meeting weekly, and we put together a request for qualifications from firms, and we received 15 statements of qualifications. The team went through an exhaustive review and interview process, and the team has identified OHM Studio 8 Consultants as the firm we'd like to work with to design and help us build the City Hall. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen has authorized us to enter into contract negotiations for a professional services agreement in which we have been working with them on, and it's our intention to bring that professional services agreement, the scope of services and schedule, to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in late September for their consideration. Part of building a city hall is that we definitely want to engage the community. It's the citizens' building. So part of the process, and I'll get into that a little bit more, and Kelly will as well, is one of the first phases in the conceptual design is a charrette process that will engage the citizens and stakeholders to provide input of what happens on this site. But equally important is the city team is comprised of over 750 employees, and we want to include them and their expertise along the way. as well as, of course, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, the Planning Commission, Historic Zoning Commission, and Sustainability Commission, and want them to be involved at various points in time to provide their expertise and input. And as far as yourselves and the Sustainability Commission, while this is just the first of many meetings, that charrette process is something that we're definitely going to want you to be actively involved in. Not only to provide your input in the discussion that occurs, but also to listen to the citizens that are providing input as well. So we make sure we have a truly functional, efficient building when we come out on, when it's time to open it up for use. In 2010, as you probably already know, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approved a resolution that essentially says that when the city pursues a public facility, that we will endeavor to achieve the LEED Silver certification. And we will do that, and we are programming that into the scope of services. We are also including an alternate for enhanced commissioning. So we can endeavor to achieve gold or platinum as we go through this process. So the point I want to make before I move on is that as we go through various aspects and steps of the project, we're going to include staff as well as the volunteers like yourself to leverage their expertise and guidance going forward. The third part is that about the scope of services. The scope of services, because the pandemic has affected us all, and in the city of Franklin, the city receives more than 50% of its revenue to pay for operations from tax revenue, is that we want to be very judicious, and I've used that word before, of how we move forward with a project of this nature. The state reports sales tax revenue 2 months in the rears. And by going to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in September, we'll have a much better idea of the impacts of sales tax revenue we'll have on the city budget operations going back to July and May. So we'll have better numbers, and we'll be able to forecast as we hope to come out of this pandemic in the near future. So that's important, and a reason why we're waiting till September. Now, in thinking of that, we've asked the consultant to have 3 specific milestones for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to consider. So when they approve the professional services agreement or consider approving it, they may decide in September the timing's not right. But if they proceed, there are 3 specific phases. And essentially, the first phase will, and I'm going to talk through that. The first phase will include, bear with me a second. I'm sorry. We'll include the initial building programming, existing site analysis, and do some preliminary concept design. And it'll also include the charrette process. And that would be the initial approval for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to allow us to proceed with that. And we would come out on the end in July of 21 with a master concept plan that we would then come back and share with the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. and we will be sharing it with other commissions along the way. But then we'd come back to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen again to ask us to move on to the schematic design, to get into more details and probable construction costs. If they allow us to go to that step, that would take us to May of 2022. And then we'll come back to the board again. And then around that time, that'll be the formal approvals by the Historic Zoning Commission, the Planning Commission of the site plan. And we will ask the board for us to proceed into the formal design and construction documents. And then we would hopefully come back to the board for approval of a bid, the bids back around December of 2023. So that's where we are today. We're making great progress. The scope of services, we're paying attention to detail and the deliverables. We want to get this right. The community deserves it. So do the employees that have been working in the building that we've called City Hall. So now I'd like to ask Brad or Joe or perhaps Kelly to talk about that charrette process a little bit, because that's really where we want to get you all involved. And I will say this, and it just came to mind, is a few weeks ago, the consultants brought Ken Skelf. I'm sure many of you know Ken. He was one of the original members of the Sustainability Commission. And we spent an hour and a half talking about LEED certification and what that looks like for a city hall, and how we can leverage the Sustainability Commission and professionals to ensure that we're showing the community as we pursue strategies for our building that they're adding value and we're just not chasing points to get a certification. And that's one of the things we're going to be looking for your leadership on. Kelly?
Thank you, Vernon. We plan to have a very robust community engagement process. Do any of you remember Plan-A-Palooza or were able to participate in that? Raise your hand. We kind of plan to follow, yeah. We plan to follow that kind of format, that it's a week-long, very intensive set of meetings that are open to the public. At this point, we've got about 30 different stakeholder groups that we've identified that we'll reach out to and hopefully get their participation in the charrette, as well as all of the meetings will be open to the public. And we're hoping to, build consensus and gather a vision using that engagement process for what the built environment looks like in a redeveloped city hall site, and then how it functions too. So as Vernon mentioned, we'll be engaging city employees in that process to make sure that we've got a really well-functioning city hall instead of an adaptive reuse old mall. So we have some different focus areas that we're looking at in terms of what we'll try to pull from that engagement process. And it includes the massing and scale and the kind of context in the historic setting that it's in. It's in a very prominent location on the square, our oldest area in the entire city. And we'll look at architectural style and customer service and how citizens interact and interface with the public spaces in the building. We'll try to gather feedback on open space and art, kind of those plazas and the pedestrian corridors and the streetscape along 3rd Avenue. We'll ask about interior design and potential additional compatible uses along 3rd Avenue to try to engage the street and draw people down 3rd Avenue. Right now it's very barren. All the doors are locked except for the one entrance into City Hall. And then circulation, how people move around the site, how transit interfaces with it, where parking is, if there's potential, as Vernon mentioned, for a parking structure that can help serve the needs of both City Hall and the downtown area. And we'd like to weave sustainability as a topic in throughout these other topics as we try to gather input. And we'd like to have you all have input into that process as well. We'll be working with a consultant once that scope of services is finalized throughout the upcoming months to hold the charrette likely in the spring. So we've got some time for planning and to work through some lead discussions before we ever get to the charrette. But we want to be able to have a very successful, very well-informed, thoughtful process as we work on this building that will be a landmark for future generations. And I'll turn it back over to Vernon or Andrew.
Brad, or I know Brad's tied up right now, or Joe, do you have anything to add at this time?
I don't have much to add, Vernon. I'd be interested to hear what the commission, what their initial thoughts are.
Yes, that's it. That's why we're here. We're looking to hear your thoughts and expectations on what you've heard. So Andrew, you can facilitate the conversation, please.
Well, we can maybe just kind of go around and see if anybody has any specific questions or comments. I'll start with Mike Leonard.
Can you guys describe the site? So it seems like in past there's discussions of the entire block. The City Hall footprint is a different story. Are you planning to maintain the 2nd Avenue parking garage? Can you just talk through the boundaries of what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can take that one. I believe the site is a little over 3 acres. It includes the building footprint. It includes the parking garage, which I'd imagine that will remain unchanged. And then it includes the surface parking lot along Church Street. On the other side of the block, you've got a little real estate office at the corner that faces the brownstone, so that remains. The old theater would remain. Parking garage remains. And then you have the bank that kind of anchors Main Street.
Okay, thank you. One quick thought, I don't know, I'm sure you guys probably are aware, but when the 2nd Avenue parking garage was constructed, there was a consideration of future development expansion of that garage to fill in that alley between City Hall and the garage. And if I recall correctly, the construction team overblasted that area so that you didn't have to do that later. So just, I don't know if that's, just keep that in mind if you plan structural system in that area. I do have several general comments and then 3 suggestions for targeted lead strategies, but I don't know. I think it may be, I mean, you tell me what's the best use of time. Maybe I'll just start with just one, and then I don't want to dominate the conversation, but in general, let me just talk about the approach to lead certification. So I think I have a unique perspective in that I've been an architect and I've designed lead projects from that perspective. I've been a consultant for 12 years, specifically around lead certification, helping project owners navigate that process. And now currently with Metro Nashville, along with Nancy on the owner's side. So I have a unique perspective that has matured, I think, over time related to lead. And the first thing I want to emphasize is that the city needs a commitment to lead, and they can't think of lead as a certification that's an option, regardless of how the design shakes out. Because in my experience, the design team feeds off that energy, and they can sense if something is not quite, if there's not full commitment. So I would urge the city to be committed to a process and follow it through. The second thing related to that, though, would be thinking through what kind of goals that you want to have. And I know you'll start to do this, but with LEED certification, some people start off thinking, what do you want the press release to read in the end? Could it be the first city hall to be X certified, silver certified, or whatever in the Southeast, or some kind of goal like that? That creates a pride factor that does nothing to create more energy efficiency in the building. That goal is a pride factor issue and is very important to the process. If you're looking for a high performance building, then you need to make sure that the credits and strategies you select are going to get you there, because there's lots of credits you can choose from. So just understanding really what it is you want out of the certification process is important. I think one last comment, Andrew, and I'll return the floor here, but Vernon, I think I heard you mention that so LEED certification with an option or alternate to pursue enhanced commissioning. From my perspective, the commissioning process is so vital to a successful project. Not only is it included in the current energy code, it's referenced as a prerequisite. It doesn't often get enforced, but the commissioning process is mentioned. But it is so vital, and I see it really ever clearer now with the city of Nashville on the owner side. But the commissioning process really should be a fundamental step. In addition to that, building envelope commissioning, we've had experience with the city, and that provides value as well. So aside from just being a point on a rating system, I would say those are must-dos to ensure that you get a quality building that's going to stand the test of time. But
hey, Mike,
I'll pause here.
Well, just a quick follow-up. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about the value of commissioning?
Sure. So the expectation from an owner is that the design documents say one thing, the contractor follows those, right? And all of his subcontractors follow that information. They read all the information you've hidden in the documents, and what they've submitted as submittals, they're providing on the job site. And when they turn the keys over to you, you have a well-built, everything coordinated building that is high performance. And that in 100% of the cases is not true. There's always an element that is not coordinated, connected, or there's a building controls issue between all of the related parties. Buildings are pretty sophisticated these days, and it's not just a fan over here and a switch over here, and you can see if it's working. There are always the little details that unless they're verified by a third-party commissioning agent, the subcontractor is not going to cross over multiple trades to test that. The architect did his job. The general contractor, all he did was hire the sub. There's a lot of areas for things to go not so well there, and I've seen it time and time again. No matter how well the team is, when the owner takes the keys, there are some things that just aren't working like they intended. So the commissioning process just helps perfect the intent of the building. I mean, I could go on about that. It really is extremely valuable.
Okay. Thanks, Mike, for sharing that. Nancy, I'll follow up with you.
Okay. Well, we've had, we've been doing LEED since 2010, and we've built around 25 buildings, and half of those are gold, half are silver, and we have one platinum, and we just achieved a silver. We may be tracking gold on a fire station. We just, under the new, LEED guidelines. But I think there's been a lot of lessons learned for us over these last years. And And we're happy to sit down with you all and go through some of this, because you should certainly use our lessons so you don't make them, some of the same mistakes. But I think people thought just because a building is LEED certified that it means it's energy efficient, and that's not the case. You have to, like Mike was saying, you really have to focus on what you're trying to accomplish with the building and what kinds of technology or mechanical systems you want to put in. A lot of times when we started value engineering, some of those systems is where, this was before general services was involved, but that's where some of those systems were, that's where the value engineering was done. So through that process, you have to be very careful. But you do need to focus on your energy utilization index and where you want that to be. Because and then after the building is LEED certified and it's performing, and we're going for high performance buildings, that's our focus now, and getting the EUI down. But is having that commitment that whoever's maintaining the building, whoever's occupying the building, they understand why you're doing certain things. There's behavioral things that you'll have to work on. But that's how Socket developed, was because of some of that. So we've got lots of lessons learned, and commissioning is one of them. We did not require commissioning in the beginning on everything, and we have had some painful mistakes because of that. And the envelope commissioning, we just really recently added that. And so we can go through how we're doing that, what our expectations are, just so that you have that information as you go forward. But we're happy to share however we can.
Great, thank you, Nancy. I'll move on to Todd Palmer.
Thanks, Mike and Nancy, for sharing your perspectives with regards to the process. I just have a question as far as the construction part. I'm assuming you guys are aware of construction companies that are better equipped to handle these types of jobs, and I'm assuming that can be shared with the city of Franklin and they can vet those properly. I just want to make sure that whatever they go with, they use the right people. So I was just curious what you guys knew about that. I'm sure some are better than others.
Well, maybe I can just jump in. I know I've worked with some of you in the past, but one of the unique things that we have here in Franklin, in all the development activity and people we work with, that we get to see who knows how to build a building in a timely, efficient, and workmanlike manner. I always like to say that those companies that come here have the luxury of knowing which communities have efficient plan review and inspection development services process. And we always like to hear about that. So getting to your point, Todd, oh yes, we track the pass-fail rate of inspections of all contractors, the pass-fail rate of design professionals when they submit plans to us. We know who are thorough and who are not, and we hold them accountable regardless. So when it gets to that time, that will be vetted out very deeply. But as I mentioned, that's not for a couple years till we get out to that point. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Mike Cassidy.
I don't really have any questions. I would make a comment that I'm very impressed with the level of activity that's already transpired and the plans. Being new to the commission, I should have expected this, I guess, but very impressive. I want to commend all of the folks from the city staff and the work that's ongoing and has been going on. Certainly, it's all news to me, and I'm couldn't be happier to assist in any way possible.
Thank you, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Brenton Montgomery.
Yeah, I think great points that I've already heard, but I guess the only question I would ask with such a major undertaking is the current location the best spot for City Hall? I mean, have we considered moving? I'm not saying that we should, just maybe it's an opportunity if we're doing such a massive overhaul to look at the future growth of the city, because I know you're at 750 employees now. So is the current location and putting all those funds in the current location the best move for the future? I don't know. I just thought I'd pose that question and see if it's being considered. Again, I'm not saying that City Hall should move, but just posing that question.
I don't know if Kelly or Joe or Brad will weigh in. The space needs analysis we had will allow us to grow. We looked at it for 20 and 40-year increments. The other part, and while the COVID situation is a concern for many, it is also an opportunity for us to look how we work more remotely and efficiently, as many businesses have. So as we go forward, we're also going to keep that in mind, because in many respects, we've been able to provide the same or a higher level of service and responsiveness to our citizens during the last several months. So that means that we may not always, we need as much floor space as we had thought we would need, but regardless, we will have additional space to grow into as the city grows if we need square footage. Maybe I'll let Kelly refer, I'll defer to her a little bit, the importance of civic buildings such as City Hall, the courthouse in the central city, and how important that is to the vibrancy and placemaking of a community. Kelly?
You said it very well, Vernon, and your question, Brendan, isn't a new one. It's been brought up over many years, but the direction really has been to keep it downtown on the corner of the square as a prominent civic building. It's even in our Envision Franklin that way in our plans to date. So we're really looking at it to continue in such an important spot, because civic uses are really important in maintaining the vibrancy and the economic vitality of historic downtowns. Even though Franklin does very well with having visitors and having shopping and restaurants, having those government uses downtown really helps support that in times where there may be less tourism. So our plans to date are to continue to move forward and use the parking structure that has already been in place, and looking to see if we could add another one and continue those uses downtown in our historic core.
Thanks, Kelly. Brenton, do you have any more questions, or was that it?
Yeah, no, that was it. I mean, I was just kind of just more curious than anything else. But yeah, I understand all of those points and they make sense. So thanks.
Micah?
Andrew, could you all share the RFQ that you sent to the consultants?
Mm-hmm.
I'd just be interested to see what the actual scope that they're working on is.
Sure.
But I think Mike and Nancy covered everything else.
Thanks, Micah. Patrick Baggett.
Wiping by it.
All right. Let's move to Alderman Berger, and then we'll close with Dana.
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
Let me just step in there just real quick for Nancy. Nancy said something a moment ago, as she and I have to deal with the same things. It's the learning and the training that the occupants of LEED buildings have to learn how to make those changes. As a team, everybody can design a LEED building, but everybody that works in a building has no idea what's it about. So you try to test them the best you can. And when they get too cold or they get too hot and they start complaining, and you have to describe set points and this and that, that's the fun part about this project, or any of these type projects, is I know Nancy can say, because it gets a little overpowering sometimes, but we've been blessed. I feel like I've been blessed in the 12 years I've been here so far, that with PD, we fully commissioned that building, went through the full commissioning on that, learned some things, helped us in some ways over there. Station 8, we did go for lead equivalent commissioning on that. We're doing the same thing on Fire Station 7. But we've been able to witness and see, as Nancy has, what services work for you, what equipment works for you, what doesn't work, what fails. Lighting systems that are out there that are very expensive, but yet when they go down, you can't put a ballast in them because the ballasts are so bad, or you can't buy them. So you got to think about some of the systems that are out there that at times can be modified due to other lighting developments that are out there in regards to cabinets. So that's the biggest thing that I run into right now, is we have LED units out there that give us nighttime lighting that have failed. And now the ballast, you can't get the ballast, you can't get the units. Time you start to try to look at putting a new unit or ballast into a Kim fixture, and I'll say Kim because I'm not real happy with the Kim fixtures, is you can't fit them in there. So then you got to start looking at spending thousands of dollars to change heads out. So you try to learn through the process. We'll work with the architects and the lighting engineers, and I'm going to tell them what I like and what works and doesn't work. And hopefully we can do it, because I know who, in regards to, as Nancy too, I'm sure she has in her back pocket a list of suppliers and maintenance folks that either Metro has the beauty of having those people on payroll, where we don't. We get people that have been certified through different types of systems with Daikin or Trane or Mitsubishi or whoever. And you got to rely on those guys to be able to call them, and they know they can come out and work on it and do what needs to be done at a proper price, but in a timely fashion, because it's hot when it's hot and it's cold when it's cold. So
yeah. You're exactly right. And one of the things that's important is that your maintenance staff is involved in the design process. Architects, and Mike, I'm sorry, but architects like for things to look pretty, and they will design a light that you cannot get to from a maintenance perspective. You have to bring a lift in to change the lights out, So there are things that your maintenance staff needs to be on board and understand the design and where things are going to be located, how it's going to be maintained. That's very important, because it can end up costing you more on the backside.
Nancy said that very professionally. Because I know with my head of maintenance and our staff and how we try to look at stuff, but I know architects and engineers love to make it look pretty. And there's nothing more important than making City Hall, downtown Franklin, look nice and pretty, and be award winning. And I mean, I've been blessed with Metro coming down and looking at our fire halls at Station 8, and has gotten some ideas off of the stuff that we did at Station 8 and now putting it into theirs. So, it's nice to be able to give those tours to other cities to call you and, hey, we want to come look at what you guys did. But yeah, Mike, I appreciate your design and your thought. And I know you don't sleep well at night sometimes. Sometimes after I get into a building, I don't sleep well either. So we'll work our way through all that.
Yeah, and we just opened Fire Station 37. So we have the Franklin doors on Fire Station 37. They look great.
Yeah, baby.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Let's close with Dana real quick.
Yeah. So I've been working with LEED for 16 years from several different contractor, owner, and now the energy consultant perspective. So could get really quote unquote geeked out on the details of LEED, along with all of us, I think. So really sort of a closing thought and thinking about the commission participating in this charrette is, my mind is going to what's going to be most valuable. I mean, do anyone who's interested show up to the charrette, or do you want just one or two people from the commission to represent the charrette? But I'm kind of thinking through what that might look like. I know we have time to, not until spring of 2021, so we have time to plan for it, but something that I think we should discuss of, don't want to overwhelm you with too much, but definitely want to provide the valuable perspectives of all of the people that have great perspectives on the commission. So I guess I'll leave that as, if you want to try to answer now, that's fine. Or if you want to think about it and have discussions, that's fine too.
I just want to jump in for a moment.
I do too.
And say that we want as much input as possible when we welcome everyone into this process. We love to engage the public, and we do it very well. We do our best to reach out in every way that we can to access citizens and get their thoughts. And so we would love for everyone to come to at least one, maybe two of the meetings and participate. We'll have other ways to give your feedback as well if you aren't able to make the meetings, especially if things continue the way they are. We'll have to retool our thought process on how we conduct, we won't have as catchy a name as Planapalooza, but how we conduct this outreach program for City Hall redevelopment. But engaging stakeholders is very important, so we welcome all of it.
Hey, I know I'm on vacation, but do I get to jump in here?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I know you called my name and then Brad came in. Okay, that's fine. Hey, listen, interesting comments. I would just say, first of all, yeah, we do have to do these shreds, but less is more. I don't think we ought to overdo the shreds. I think less is more on this thing. We can just beat this thing to death with charrettes, and I'm not interested in doing that. And of course, everybody's going to have their opinions, and opinions are fine, but when it comes down to where the rubber meets the road, we've got to build a sustainable, wonderful building that's going to serve us for years and years and years. I think with the shreds too, you're going to see a bunch of people that are going to say, oh, absolutely, we have to build it right where it is. Other people are going to still want to move it off the square, but I think we're pretty well committed to building right where it is. A couple of things. I don't know if we are still looking at PPP, public-private partnership, to build this. Andrew, maybe you could weigh in on that, or Vernon. I want to know if we're still considering the PPP. A comment was made about construction, and that's going to be key because there are a ton of construction companies out there, but we've got to get the right one. That's going to be critical in selecting the correct one. Brad, I'm going to count on you to help us with that as well, and everybody else on this committee, on this commission, because the construction company is going to be critical to getting what we need and what we want, and what it's going to allow us to put these features in here to actually going to save money. The other thing I would say, that we started this process back in 2007, and when then the downturn came in 8, 9, we tabled it, shelved it forever until now. And now we've got this ridiculous coronavirus that we've got to deal with, and what damage it's done to our economy. I think we've got to continue to move forward. We could turn around the next year and something else hits us. But I don't think we have, I don't think it's wise to continue to put it off, put it on the shelf when we get hit between the eyes with different things. I think the good planning, putting money back, trying to gauge for the money, it's going to be critical. That's where the board and the administration is going to have to come in. With our finance department, we're going to have to really talk about how we can get this done regardless of what comes down the road. The other concern I have is that we, and this goes along with sustainability, LEED certified and everything, but the technology that we put in our building, I don't want today's technology to be put in there. I want tomorrow's technology to be put in there. And what I mean by that is how we plan for that, what options that we have to look at, and how, like a lot of times you'll build a house don't have the money to build out the basement or the attic, but you stub it out. You put it in the heating and air, and you put in the water and everything for a bath, but you don't build it out. You put up the drywall later and everything. So there may be some places in City Hall, and Brad, I think you and Vernon can speak to this too, but how we go about building City Hall, and if there are any other areas within the facility and within the building that we build out, we stub out, we make sure it's all there, but we actually build some of that out later, whether it be a side part, a basement, whatever we have. I don't know how this is going to play out, but I just wanted to offer those things. And then I think that's it. I think it's just all my comments. Thanks.
Chair, I've had terrible service. I apologize. But while I've got some good, I had 2 comments to make. One, I hope the Sustainability Commission will maybe have a singular meeting focused on the building attributes related to LEED. And because I think that's obviously a main, part of our charge. But then secondarily, I believe we have other charges as well, that being quality of life, how that impacts, how the building will impact the walkability, the connectivity of that quadrant of the city. I mean, there's some things that are outside of just building attributes that I think we need to consider and engage, our thought processes on. And I don't want to. I think that obviously, if we were very focused, maybe had some special meetings outside of our normal, just on those, because it's all warranted discussion and really valuable, I'm sure, to the city. So that's my one comment is, let's look at the quality of life. Even LEED for Cities has a component of walkability and transportation and car usage. So I think we could really challenge ourselves as a Sustainability Commission to look at this project also in the broader impact to that quadrant of the city, because it will be how it's developed will impact that quadrant significantly. Not just the quadrant of the square, but I'm thinking even back into back all the way back to Mr. Moore's old property there in the very back corner, so towards the river. So it's a very impactful thing, and I think we should focus some efforts on that as well. Thank you.
Well, I think that kind of concludes the discussion. I think the last thing on the agenda was other news, adjournment. The next meeting is going to be that first Friday in September. And I will send out a meeting invitation for that. So that's going to be September 4th, although that is the Friday before Labor Day. Dana, do you want to speak to that? Should we keep that on the schedule?
I guess I'll throw out to the group I don't think I have any conflicts that day. Is there anyone who does have a conflict with that day? Should we look at moving it to the following Friday?
What's that date again? Sorry.
September 4th. It's the Friday right before Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, I'm out that week.
I'm tempted to push it to the following week because as it gets closer, there might be more people that decide to be out. So
I'm also out. Not that I'm at her, but I'm also out.
You're out on the 4th? Okay. Yeah, then let's move it to the 11th.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Okay. Well, with that, we will adjourn the meeting. I figured that was going to be a great discussion with a lot of comments and feedback. So Vernon, Brad, Joe, Kelly, if you have any questions as you delve in more, let us know. We're looking forward to participating. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.